guys, welcome back to Room 237, and I'm back with another Christmas horror movie review. Now, my last video was a rant on the 2017 film that you can find on Hulu, Once Upon a Time at Christmas. And I actually did not know until I was getting ready to do that review that there was actually a sequel that came out last year, 2019, called The Nights Before Christmas. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know there was a sequel. So when I got done with that review, I went to YouTube. I saw it was on there for free. It had Arabic subtitles. I think it was Arabic, but it wasn't too distracting. So now I'm here with that review, 2019's That Is Bright as Hell. Probably why I had it like this to begin with. 2019's The Nights Before Christmas. Which, like the previous one, it is directed by Paul Tanter and co-written between Simon Phillips and Paul Tanter. Simon Phillips returns to play the killer Santa Claus named Nicholas, which we did know his name was Nick in the previous film. But when he was addressed as Nicholas in this, I was like, oh God, St. Nicholas, of course. There is no Christopher Jolly in the writing of this one, like in the previous film. And Sayla DeGode returns as Mrs. Claus. So, in that respect, it's the same sort of creative acting crew as the previous. All other recurring characters are played by new actors. And I have to say, while that review of the first film was a rant, I do see that it is a so bad it's good kind of modern cult classic. A lot of people really like it. They know that it's a mindless, silly, dumb movie, but they still got enjoyment out of it. It wasn't for me. It wasn't saved for me. I thought it was just a bad movie, save for a couple elements. Go watch my review for that. This was a monumental improvement over the first one. That had a 3.3 on IMDb. This has a 3.5. But, by God, it's not a great movie by any means. It's still a mindless killer Santa movie. But everything I had a problem with in the first one is improved in this one. This is a much better film. This is a superior sequel. I was actually blown away by it, to be perfectly honest. Now, it's not that I was skeptical going into it. I kind of figured it's going to be more or less the same thing. Okay, spoilers, well, not really spoilers, because this is a sequel. They get away at the end. They must be coming back to finish what they started. But it's actually something really different. More similar, but with a different angle. And while that looked like a $1 million budget, so like bad movie, like mindless fun movie, this is the same thing but disguised as like a big cat and mouse FBI type movie. I even compared the whole 12 Days of Christmas MO for killing in the first film as being kind of intricate and kind of like Seven. Although Seven is a much better movie. Infinitely better movie. This one is the same kind of movie but disguised as a Seven type movie. Like, it's got a grittier, darker tone to it. It's a much darker film all the way around. It's a huge step up. Like, I don't know if Paul Tanter did anything in between these films. Let's see if I get his filmography here. Okay, he was the producer on No Easy Days in 2018. Age of the Living Dead producer 2018 to 22. Oh, full filmography. Director. A lot of producing credits. Executive producer. He has 26 credits under director. Okay. TV series Endeavor, TV series Dystopia, TV series. So, as far as films go, not really. But I'm guessing with these TV series, he must have grown a lot as a director. We do see a much better direction, camera techniques. There is a bit more of an effort to make it feel like a bigger movie. Now, 1 year has passed since the events of the first film. The lead girl, Jen, which, spoilers for the first film starting now. So if you haven't seen the first or my review for the first, movie's on Hulu, you can check out my review. But spoilers for that. Whether you liked the first one or not, this one is a big improvement, and I would recommend seeing this, but only obviously if you've seen the first one. So, Jen is now played by Shannon Cotter, who's now in the witness protection with her mother, as is the slut friend Courtney, who is now played by Keegan Chambers, along with her mother. It opens up with the asylum fire that Santa started to escape. It shows him attacking this one, I guess, doctor. And then we see Courtney being talked to by her father, saying, we want you to come home. It's been a year. No way he's after you anymore. Please come home. She doesn't want to. Her hair was red in the first film. Now it's pink. And I will say, none of the actors or actresses look anything like their previous film counterparts, save for Sheriff Mitchell, who I'm not even sure. Barry Kennedy. I don't think he... Okay. It is the same sheriff, so that's probably why. But anyway, then her dad is driving away, and there's actually no Wikipedia plot summary, so I got to go with memory, even though I just finished watching it. He's killed by Santa. He's stopped in the road. I think Santa walks out in the road. He swerves to avoid hitting him, runs out into the woods, gets killed with an axe. And then, local authorities get involved. They rule it as an accident. He was a known drinker. They think he got in an accident, ran off to get help into the woods. And I guess that's a wound from the accident. FBI shows up, and then we find out that Mr. and Mrs. Claus is in the FBI's top 10. She knows this is a crime scene of theirs. They're walking around, and they see in blood, written in the snow, naughty. And that's the MO of this film, which is a nice aerial drone shot which that's one thing I will mention about how it feels bigger, like more ambitious. There's a scene with like a chopper, and you can tell it's a drone shot, but they add the like chopper, a propeller sound effect. The effects, if there is any CGI, is fairly seamless or barely noticeable or not stand out as much, which was a huge problem I had with the first film. Very, very, very shoddy CGI. Here it is either all practical or very well blended CGI, so very big props for that. And so thus begins the chase of the FBI and the clauses. The funeral for Courtney's dad is being held. At first, Jen doesn't want to go. Her mother talks her into it because she went to Frank from the first film, Frank's funeral. So they go, and of course, the FBI is everywhere. Mrs. Claus shows up in funeral disguise, and they know it's her. They approach her, they arrest her. Most of the film, she's in custody, and they're trying to get through to her to reveal where he is and what he's going to do. Santa is also there. He goes after the priest that's doing the funeral, and we find out the priest had sexually assaulted Mrs. Claus while she was there. And this, they're going, while the first film was more about going after people linked to Jen in a way, but also building it after the 12 Days of Christmas. This is built after Santa's Naughty or Nice list, and everyone that is involved directly or somehow indirectly with the asylum that they were at. So several of their victims we see, like we get flashbacks of their interactions with them. Like another one of the first victims is their psychiatrist, which Santa leaves up to her to decide if she's naughty or nice. Pulls her head back. She has a knife. We hear her scream, but we don't know what happens. While they're holding Mrs. Claus at the funeral, this black Mustang pulls away. They think it's him. There's a chase. They stop it. They can tell someone dressed as Santa is driving, but they see it's the psychiatrist dressed as Santa with nice carved in her forehead. So that's what they do. They mark their victims or the crime scenes with naughty or nice. And so we, as the audience, find that's pretty obvious. Now, one thing I said about the previous film was I was so disinterested that I didn't pick up on the clues and breadcrumbs that were left throughout the film, such as the number of victims per day and crime scene, and also the clues that were left that equals like the pear for the partridge in a pear tree, turtle dove point, all that stuff. I didn't pick up on it until the revelation, but I know they were there. Here, I was very interested, but they didn't leave those clues. There's no way to really know what their angle is until it's said. The only thing we know is that there's a list. He has a list that he's going down for naughty or nice. And I will say, the only part of the writing that I would say was the least improved would have been the back and forth between, because Jen and Courtney actually take a back seat in this film, and the lead is actually the FBI agent, Natalie Parker, played by Kate Schroeder, which she looked really familiar, but I don't know what else she was in. Probably because I haven't seen any of it. Nope. and we're following her cat and mouse. Like, if it were Seven, she's Brad Pitt. There's a lot of back and forth between her and her partner where she keeps bringing up, I think it's a list that actually exists. Even though they have this conversation several times throughout the film, it's like, and he keeps reacting like, they're doing it on the phone. He keeps reacting like, well, what do you mean by that? So even though they had that conversation several times, it's like, you've talked about this before. You know what's the naughty or nice list. She even does talk early on to Sheriff Mitchell from the first film, who still lives in Woodbridge. I guess a lot of these people still stayed in Woodbridge regardless of what happened. And she leaves the file for him. He does look at it. He leaves her a voicemail saying, I think it's an actual list of naughty or nice. Like, 12 Days of Christmas was a song. I think this is based on that song. So that's where she keeps saying, I think it's an actual list that exists. So I would say the writing, that's the only part of the writing that isn't very much improved, because they keep going back to it like it's a new thing. But even we as the audience don't know what that list is based on. Although it slowly does point out people directly or indirectly involved with the asylum, but we don't quite know how the list is formed until it says it. So it's not quite a mystery that we solve with the law enforcement characters, even though I guess if I paid attention, we would have been way ahead of law enforcement in the first film. Not so much in this one. There is one victim or two victims that are at a place where they're looking for someone, or wrong place, wrong time, and they kill them anyway. There are only two people that they leave as nice. There are several points that are very convenient. I mean, like, later Saw sequel convenient. I mean, even the first victim, the Courtney's dad, with being on that back road, which we find out he worked at the asylum, I guess, as an orderly, and he kept taking that back road just out of habit. That he knew he was going to be on that road at that time to ambush him. Also, like, he's able to sneak into he's retired, but Sheriff Mitchell's house, know where he kept his pistol, and take the bullets and go through the whole spiel of that scene, like, I'm gonna kill you, and, you know, his psycho Hannibal Lecter, I'm smarter than you kind of talk. Which, that's another thing that was improved. This isn't as... It's definitely a more serious film. Like, the first one was... I know I'm comparing it a lot, but I do think it's a much better film. In the first one, he was more laughing and cackling because I'm insane. It wasn't up until the very end did he really sort of have a character that spoke, and we got to know his motives and what he's trying to do. Here, he is that sort of more or less cryptic, but, you know, he is more talky than... He still laughs while he's killing, but he's definitely more of that speaking character. And Mrs. Claus, where she does have a few scenes of laughter, she is not the Harley Quinn ripoff that she was in the first one. She's kind of... I would actually say, I guess she's more like Baby from Rob Zombie than Harley Quinn. Especially from Three from Hell. Because she is toying with the feds while she's in custody. At one point, even hints that she might have eaten some razor blades to kill herself to get out of talking about him. So they get an ambulance transport to a hospital with like a whole convoy of fed vehicles. But of course, he's on that road already with a big trap with a rope in a tree. And another sort of convenient scene where the one in the front is like, we got a guy blocking the road. They're broken down, and they're like, is he dressed like a Santa? They're like, yeah. And they're like, that's him. He's gonna break her out. You need to run him over. And even though we hear the voice coming out of their radio, they don't react. Like they're saying like, transport 1, do you copy? Do you copy? But they're just kind of like looking at each other, like not reacting. And of course, hits the rope, tree falls on it. She uses her heel to like get her leg up against the throat of the one guy she's in the truck with, kill him with her heel. The other guy's a rookie, so he's scared shitless. Santa comes in, she gets him down, crushes his neck with her knee. He breaks her out. This one orderly that used to beat the patients, including her, is now the groundskeeper of the asylum. But I guess they still have a room there that they have all their pictures of people. Like that's where they like regroup and plan. But I guess this groundskeeper never knew about it. So they get to him, they kill him with hanging him by Christmas lights. They use this sort of black light forensics to get like a print, because they see in all the pictures there's an 8x4 blank space on the wall. So they do some forensics and they can see a partial print that was there, and it's a list. It's a Christmas card list for everyone that was involved with the asylum, including all these board members, of which I think the CEO is actually played by Paul Tanner. I could be wrong. That's not there. I just want to check real quick. I think, unless he's uncredited, I don't remember the character's name. Excuse me. Oh, not important. And this is another one of those convenient scenes. It's like a huge building, downtown city. There's all these board members talking about all the money they made that year. They think this one lawyer, he goes to the bathroom, and Santa is just in there. You know, this burnt and messed up looking Santa with a filthy ass Santa suit was able to get in the building. Not only that, up to the 32nd floor, because he's like, do you work here? And he's like, wearing a suit, peeing in the executive washroom on the 32nd floor. I don't work here. I'm a board member. So either security sucks, they're very stealthy and swift in what they do, or they didn't have a way to get them up there, so they just had them up here. They get into, which actually, his death is that he's still pissing, so he takes these, they're not bolt cutters because they're kind of curved, like those ones that you cut branches with. He like reaches over, cuts his dick off, falls on the floor, and then we see like a shot of the urinal where it looks like he's pissing blood. He falls on the floor, and he calls Mrs. Claus in here to come look at this. Then in the boardroom, they're sitting there talking about something. He's like, you can thank the lawyer, which where is he? Then all of a sudden, dick lands on the table. He comes in, gives his spiel about like who has cut the funding and everything for the asylum. And then they talk about that. This one woman was asking about the care of the patients, and he says that's going to put you on the nice list. The one guy makes it sound like he's going to bargain everyone else's life for his own. But I do like the line he says to the one lady that they leave alive. He was like, promise me something. Be a better CEO than him. And then they just kill everyone in the room. But there's one member that's missing. This guy named Tom, which earlier Courtney and Jen had made plans to go visit her Uncle Tom at the hospital. During this board meeting, we find out Tom Bolin. Is that his name? I think they said Tom Bolin, which... Oh, never mind. Not important. I just had a thought, but it was stupid. They say Tom Bolin, he's having his appendix removed. He's at the hospital. So they have to go to the hospital to get that last board member. And here's where the movie takes a few twists and turns that I didn't see coming. So they're there visiting her Uncle Tom, Courtney's Uncle Tom. They're talking about the asylum, like, hey, you got my dad that job, right? And then the power gets cut. Girls look at each other and say, showtime. So now I'm thinking they planned this. They're going to, kind of sort of trap him. FBI agent Natalie is now talking to, I think, someone that's been dealing with the girls, like their FBI escorts or whatever. It is like, oh, she's with Courtney. They're visiting her uncle at the hospital. And she's like, is his name Tom Bolin? They say yes. How do you know that? Is it because that's where the clauses are going? But when Santa comes up, that's when Courtney says, okay, there she is. Take her. And Jen's like, why? She said, this won't end until he has you and you're dead. I'm sorry, my life's fucked up. I hate witness protection. I need my life to go back to normal. So then they had their back and forth about betrayal. He lets her go, but she's like, well, I'm taking my uncle. And he's like, well, he's on my list. And they're like, well, screw your list. Takes him. He lets Mrs. Claus hunt him down. She's like, but you made a promise with her. And he's like, a promise with a liar is no promise at all. But then, of course, Mrs. Claus catches up to Courtney and her uncle. She pulls a gun on her, gives it to her uncle, says, keep it on her. She goes back to the room where Jen and Santa are. She pulls out her gun and then realized that they conspired it together. That's how they were able to separate the clauses and get one gun on her and one gun on him. And I never understood why his gun didn't work. Either they forgot to load it or she screwed her uncle. Whatever. So then, just as Jen has Santa, he gives her the same spiel at the end of the first film about how, we're just alike. This is your full potential. I couldn't be more proud of my daughter. As soon as you kill me, you want to kill me because of your instincts, and then once you kill me, you'll be a killer, just like me. Courtney offers to spare her that and kill him for her. She's like, no, it has to be me. At that point, FBI agent Natalie and her partner come in. They have the standoff. Put it down, no. Put it down, no. They shoot her. And so then, of course, Santa is now broken because his daughter was killed. And now we're back in the jail cell, which actually, Like the first film, it opened in a jail cell, but this time it's FBI agent Natalie and Santa talking about how, you lost. All we gotta do is catch Mrs. Claus now, because after she killed the uncle, she left. But now, like the ending of the first film, Mrs. Claus comes up behind her, which I did like this part, because earlier on, Mrs. Claus says something about not being the jealous type. But now Santa is saying the one thing she hates most is a woman that stands in between us. So then, next shot is Mrs. Claus, and behind her, she's like, I lied. I am the jealous type. Screen goes to black, killing sound, scream, credits. It does hit a lot of the same beats as the first film, but the story is much better written. It is much better acted. It did kind of suck that they didn't leave the clues and breadcrumbs for the audience to sort of solve what was going on. They had it completely hidden until they figured it out. So we weren't kind of able to put it together ourselves, which is the most fun about these kind of movies. It is definitely more of the cat and mouse, FBI, law enforcement, procedural film. I guess while the first one had more of a motive, like Seven, this one felt more like a Seven movie, but while still being a mindless, fun movie. The production was much, much better. Much better and ambitious camera work and editing. It didn't have scenes that felt misplaced like the first one did. It had more of a grittier, larger scale tone to it. The last one felt low budget. This one felt more like a theatrical thriller drama type of tone. Thriller drama, crime thriller tone. But it still maintained its fun, sort of mindless fun. Santa, Mrs. Claus going around killing people. The effects, miles better. Again, seamless CGI or just not as noticeable. And I mean, someone gets stabbed in the neck, it's almost like a Tarantino geyser of blood. It's not gory, but it's very bloody. I mean, I really like the scene when they're in the boardroom killing people, and we just see that wall just get covered in more and more blood spatter. It's actually kind of humorous, because we see these two guys out in the hallway just kind of talking, just like colleagues in the hallway talking, and there's sort of like the hallway music. And we hear like the faint screams and blood hitting the window, but they don't realize it. Just everything about this film is just way better than the first, just across the board. While there was really only two aspects that I liked about the first film, but it wasn't enough to save it, this one just had one aspect that I didn't like, and it's not enough to harm it. It's not enough to discredit it. And that is the fact that we didn't get to solve the mystery with law enforcement. But they found a new way to keep the story going without redoing it. I mean, yes, it still is them killing people who are all connected in a way. But they found another aspect that is very Christmassy. The naughty or nice list. Yeah, there were times that were very Saw sequel convenient. Like, how did they know that was going to happen? Or, of course, that worked perfectly. Which, okay, I will say that's another aspect that I didn't like as much. So, the lack of clues for mystery and the plot convenience. But again, those two aspects were not enough to kill or really harm the movie. I actually really enjoyed it. In fact, in my last review where I said if the aspects I liked were in a much better Killer Santa movie, I would have really enjoyed it. This is that much better Killer Santa movie. It just wasn't 12 Days of Christmas. It was the Naughty or Nice List. So it was the same crew, the same killer actors. They did the better version of the first one. And most of the time while I was saying that, I didn't know there was a sequel. But yeah, far superior movie. I'm sorry if this review was a bit more scattered or less informative, but I am very used to having the plot in front of me instead of just going from memory. But that was the 2019 sequel, The Nights Before Christmas. Far, far, far superior. Still mindless. Still a low budget kind of B movie. But it's disguised as like a big scale FBI procedural with the Killer Santa. Way better. But thank you for watching.